The title of intendant has been used in several countries through history. Traditionally, it refers to the holder of a public administrative office. The title was used and is also commonly found today in many theaters and opera houses in Europe, where it is the equivalent to general director, a title given to an individual in a managerial position, generally having control over all aspects of the company. France. Overview. Intendants were royal civil servants in France under the old regime, a product of the centralization policies of the French crown. Intendants were appointed commissions and not purchasable hereditary offices, which thus prevented the abuse of sales of royal offices and made them more tractable and subservient emissaries of the king. Intendants were sent to supervise and enforce the king's will in the provinces and had jurisdiction over three areas: finances, policing and justice. The missions were always temporary, which helped reduce favorable bias toward a province, and were focused on royal inspection. Article 54 of the Code Michaud described the functions as to learn about all crimes, misdemeanors and financial misdealings committed by our officials and of other things concerning our service and the tranquility of our people. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the intendants were chosen from the noblesse narobe, the upper bourgeoisie. Generally, they were masters of requests in the Conseil des Partis. They were chosen by the Controller General of Finances, who asked the advice of the Secretary of State for War for those who were to be sent in border provinces. They were often young. Charles Alexandre de Calonne became an intendant at the age of 32. Turgot and Louis Benin François Berthier de Sauvigny at the age of 34, and Louis Urbain Orbit de Tournai at the age of 40. A symbol of royal centralization and absolutism, the intendant had numerous adversaries, those nostalgic for an administration based on noble lineages, or intendants as parvenus and usurpers of noble power. Partisans of a less absolute monarchy called for them to be abolished. Jacques Necker, the only minister of finance since 1720 who had not himself been an intendant, accused them of incompetence because of the youth and social aspirations. The Cahiers de doléances of 1789 depicted them as overzealous agents of fiscal policies which weighed heavily on the people. The term intendant was also used for certain positions close to the Controller General: intendants of finance, intendants of commerce, intendants of the Sovereign Council. In the same way, the term intendant général was used for certain commissioned positions close to the State Secretaries of War and of the Navy. History. As early as the 15th century, the French kings sent commissioners to the provinces to report on royal and administrative issues and to undertake any necessary action. These agents of the king were recruited from amongst the masters of requests, the councillors of state and members of the parliaments of the Court of Accounts. The mission was always for a specific mandate and lasted for a limited period. Along with these, there were also commissioners sent to the army, in charge of provisioning the army, policing and finances. They would supervise accountants, providers, merchants, and generals, and attend war councils and tribunals for military crimes. Such commissioners are found in Corsica as early as 1553, in Bourges in 1592, in Troyes in 1594, and in Limoges in 1596. When Henry IV ascended the throne in 1589, one of his prime focuses was to reduce the privileges of the provincial governors who, in theory, represented the presence of the king in his province, but had, during the civil wars of the early early modern period, proven themselves to be highly intractable. These positions had long been held by only the highest-ranked noble families in the realm, the intendants to the provinces. The term intendant appears around 1620 during the reign of Louis XIII, became an effective tool of regional control. Under Louis XIII's minister Cardinal Richelieu, with France's entry into the 30 Years' War in 1635, the intendants became a permanent institution in France. No longer mere inspectors, their role became one of government administrators. During the Fronde in 1648, the members of Parliament of the Chamber St. Louis demanded that the intendants be suppressed. Mazarin and Anne of Austria gave in to these demands except in the case of border provinces threatened by Spanish or imperial attack. At the end of the Fronde, the intendants were reinstated. When Louis XIV was in power, the Marquis of Louvois, war secretary between 1677 and 1691, further expanded the power of the provincial intendants. They monitored Louis's refinements of the French military, including the institution of a merit promotion system and a policy of enlistment limited to single men for periods of 4 years. After 1680, intendants in France had a permanent position in a fixed region. Their official title is Intendant de Justice, Police et Finances, Commissaire des parties dans les généralités du royaume pour l'exécution des ordres du roi. The position of intendant remained in existence until the French Revolution. The title was maintained thereafter for military officers with responsibility for financial auditing at regimental level and above, functions appointed and revoked by the king and reporting to the Controller General of Finances. The intendant in his generalité had at his service a small team of secretaries. In the 18th century, the generalité was subdivided into subdelegations, at the head of which was placed a subdelegate chosen by the intendant. In this way, the intendant was relatively understaffed given his large jurisdiction. Famous intendants Claude François Bertrand de Boucheporn in Corsica, then Pau, Bayonne and Auch, Paul Esprit Marie de la Bourdonnais in Poitiers, Charles Alexandre de Calonne in Metz, then in Lille, future Controller General of Finances, Nicolas François Dupré de Saint-Maur in Bordeaux, Antoine Martin Chaumont de la Galaisier in Soissons, then in Lorraine, Jean-Baptiste Antoine Auger de Montrian in Poitiers, Louis Urbain Aubert de Tournai in Limoges, then in Bordeaux, and Robert Jacques Turgot in Limoges, future Controller General of Finances. References. Portions of this section are a translation of the article Intendant from the French Wikipedia, consulted on August 13, 2006. New France. The French colony of New France in North America, which later became the Canadian province of Quebec, also had senior official called an intendant, who was responsible to the French king. New France's first intendant was Jean Talon, Comte d'Orsainville in 1665, and the last one, at the time of the British conquest of Quebec, was Pierre-François de Rigaud. Spain and the Spanish Empire. Intendants were introduced into the Spanish Empire during the 18th century Bourbon reforms. The reforms were designed by the new dynasty to make political administration more efficient and to promote economic, commercial, and fiscal development of the new realms. An intendante was in charge of a Spanish administrative unit called an intendencia, which could include one or more provinces. The intendante was appointed directly by the crown and had responsibility to oversee the treasury, the collection of taxes, and to promote agriculture and economic growth in general, with fiscal powers that gave them a say in almost all administrative, ecclesiastical and military matters. Intendants were conceived by the Bourbon kings to be a check on other local officials, just as the intendants had been in France a century earlier. Throughout the 18th century, the Bourbons experimented with the powers and duties of the intendants both in Spain and overseas. So what follows is only a general description of the Spanish intendancy. In any given area at any given time, the duties of the intendant would have been specified by the laws that established the particular intendancy. The first intendancias were established in Spain after 1711, during the War of the Spanish Succession on the advice of Jean Auray, who had been sent by Louis XIV of France to help his young grandson Philip V set up his new government. The first intendants oversaw the finances of the army and of the territories conquered by the Bourbons, and after the war, they were made permanent. In 1749 an intendancy was established in every province, with the intendant also holding the office of corregidor of the capital city. District alcaldes, mayors or corregidors were subordinated to the provincial intendant a corregidor and assisted him in managing the province and implementing reforms. As a result of the 7 Years' War, an intendancy was set up in Cuba in 1764. The Cuban intendant had oversight of the army's and the royal treasury's finances. After 2 years of experimentation with the new office, an intendancy was introduced in Louisiana. The same year, Visitador General José de Galvez created a plan to set up intendancies in New Spain. The first one was set up in central Mexico in 1786, followed in 1787 by Veracruz, Puebla, Valladolid in Michoacán, Guadalajara, Oaxaca, Guanajuato, Zacatecas, San Luis Potosi, Durango, Sonora, and in 1789 Mérida, the main city in Yucatán. These administrative changes codified existing regional divisions of center, south, and north. In 1776 Galvez, now Minister of the Indies, established an intendancy for all of Venezuela in 1776, and several in the Rio de la Plata in 1783. Most of the overseas intendants were assisted by officials who replaced the old corregidors or alcaldes mayors. Initially, intendancies were held by a separate person from the viceroy or the governor, but eventually in many places the offices were granted to one person due to conflicts that emerged between these two. More intendancies were established in Quito, Peru, Philippines, Puerto Rico, Guatemala, more areas of New Spain, Chile and Cuenca. The revolt of the Comuneros prevented their installation in New Granada, present-day Spain. Nowadays in the Spanish armed forces, the title intendant refers to a colonel in the supply branch either in the Navy, Army or Air Force. It is also used in some branches of the administration such as the Catalonian Autonomic Police, or in some autonomous communities. Scotland. In Scotland, intendant is an archaic title meaning supervisor or curator. The senior officer of the city of Glasgow Police was called an intendant in the document establishing the force in 1800. Argentina. In Argentina, city mayors are referred to as intendants. This meaning is not at all connected to the usage in other countries. Spanish-language media in countries other than Argentina tend to refer to Argentine city mayors as alcaldes, which is the most common Spanish word for mayor. Chile. Chile is administratively divided in 15 regions. Each region is headed by an intendant, appointed by the president. The intendants of Chile by region with political parties are Arica and Parinacota region, Rodolfo Barbosa Barrios; Tarapacá region, Luzensburger Orrego; Antofagasta region, Alvaro Fernandez Slater; Atacama region, Ximena Matas Quilladrón; Coquimbo region, Sergio Gaffona Salazar; Valparaiso region, Raúl Celis Montt; Santiago metropolitan region, Fernando Echeverria; O'Higgins region, Rodrigo Pérez Mackenna; Mall region, Rodrigo Galileo Vile; Biobío region, Victor Lobos del Fierro. Araucania region, André Molina Magovsky. Los Rios region, Joan André Varas Brown. Los Lagos region, Joan Sebastian Montes. AISEA Q10 region, Pilar Cuevas Mardones. Magallanes and Antarctica Chilena region, Liliana Kosanovich. Paraguay. The Republic of Paraguay is administratively divided into 17 departamentos, each of which is headed by an gobernador departamental. These departamentos are divided into 236 distritos. Districts are headed by an intendant municipal. These intendants are popularly elected and serve a term of 5 years. Uruguay. Uruguay is divided administratively into 19 departamentos. The executive power of each department is the Intendencia, headed by an intendant departamental. The intendants are popularly elected and serve a term of 5 years. United States. For much of its history, the chief magistrate of the city of Charleston, South Carolina was the intendant of the city, roughly corresponding to a mayor. The title intendant was also used in other low-country towns, where the office was assisted by wardens, a system which may have derived from earlier ecclesiastical administration under colonial rule. Russia and Soviet Union. The position of intendant was part of the Tsarist Russian army from 1812 to 1868. Intendants were responsible for supplies, finances, etc. in the field. After the 1935 rank reform that established personal ranks in the Soviet military, it was reintroduced as the rank title for administrative and supply offices. The specific ranks, their collar insignia, and a line equivalents were Technician Intendant Second Class 2 rectangles, Lieutenant, Technician Intendant First Class 3 rectangles, Senior Lieutenant, Intendant Third Class 1 rectangle, Captain, Intendant Second Class 2 rectangles, Major, Intendant First Class 3 rectangles, Colonel. Bridge Intendant 1 diamond, Combrig. Div Intendant 2 diamonds, Comdiv. Corps Intendant 3 diamonds, Comcorps. Arm Intendant 4 diamonds, Command Arms Second Class. On May 7, 1940, the rank title system for all Soviet Army senior officers was changed to bring it closer in line with standard European practice, and the ranks of Major General of the Intendant Service, Lieutenant General of the Intendant Service, and Colonel General of the Intendant Service were introduced. Senior officers from Bridge Intendant to Arm Intendant rank underwent a reattestation process and were given a general rank. On March 30, 1942, the Intendant ranks equivalent to those between Lieutenant and Colonel were abolished, and officers holding those ranks also underwent a reattestation process and received ranks ranging from Lieutenant of the Intendant Service to Colonel of the Administrative Service. Japan. A daikon was an intendant, a magistrate in historical Japan. The office he held was called the daikonsho. The daikon was responsible for overseeing a range of governmental functions, including infrastructure, tax collection, and judicial matters. Other uses. In Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, Intendant was a title in the Mirror Universe. The Mirror Universe version of Kira Nerys held the position of Intendant of Baja.